What if I told you that tens of thousands of years ago, a forgotten group of humans walked this earth, who were taller, broader, and significantly stronger than almost anyone alive today? Imagine a world where your daily routine involved outsmarting massive woolly mammoths and surviving fractured skulls without a single drop of medicine. This is not science fiction. This is our direct ancestry. Around 56,800 years ago, during the bleak and unforgiving late Pleistocene, a remarkable group of survivors arrived in Europe. For decades, popular culture has obsessed over the Neanderthals, painting them as the ultimate symbols of Ice Age toughness. But in doing so, we have completely overlooked a far more terrifying population of absolute biological powerhouses. Known to science as European early modern humans, or Cro-Magnons, these people were not a different species. They were us, but dialed up to an extreme level of physical robusticity. But as we peel back the layers of ice and time to uncover their jaw-dropping secrets, a darker question emerges. Did they use their massive brains for survival? Or did they initiate history's first global warfare? To truly comprehend why these ancient pioneers dominated the freezing European tundra, we must dissect their mind-blowing skeletal remains. First discovered in a French rock shelter back in 1868, scientists initially thought they had stumbled upon an entirely new branch of humanity. Their physical presence was so imposing that it completely redefined our understanding of human potential. The sheer stature of these early modern humans was nothing short of miraculous, given the severe nutritional limitations of the Ice Age. Adult male specimens from certain regions regularly stood between 5'11" and a towering 6'3". That makes them significantly taller than the global average of modern, post-industrial humans, standing like giants among the frozen peaks. But height was only half the story. Their skeletal structures reveal an immense level of robusticity, with bones that were thicker, broader, and far denser than ours. Biomechanical reconstructions suggest that a typical adult male carried roughly 20% more lean muscle mass than a modern human of the exact same height. They were walking anatomical action figures. A closer look at their shoulders reveals exceptionally long collarbones, measuring up to 19 centimeters. This unique skeletal leverage granted them an astonishing mechanical advantage, allowing them to swing heavy melee weapons or launch stone-tipped projectiles with devastating, bone-crushing kinetic energy. Every single muscle fiber was engineered for maximum lethality. This overkill biology was a direct response to a world that showed zero mercy. In the brutal grip of the last glacial maximum, an organism either adapted to the peak of physical efficiency or was wiped out entirely. Their bodies were high-performance biological machines. But this supreme physical power came with a devastating catch that would terrify any modern person. What was the true cost of possessing the physical build of a prehistoric demigod? It was a life cut tragically short, defined by agonizing injuries and constant violence. As we prepare to look closely at the grisly trauma carved into their very bones, ask yourself if you could survive a single day in their world. Keep watching, because their medical resilience will shock you. The fossil record of these Ice Age hunters reads like a brutal combat diary. The vast majority of recovered skeletons bear the marks of catastrophic physical trauma. In the Cro-Magnon rock shelter alone, researchers found that nearly every individual suffered from fused cervical vertebrae in their necks, a telltale sign of repetitive, high-impact physical stress and severe injury. Consider the skull of an adult female found at the site, which features a massive, deep cranial fracture. In the modern world, such an injury requires immediate neurosurgery. Yet incredible evidence of bone regrowth proves that she survived this horrific wound for years. Without antibiotics or sterile hospitals, Her sheer immune resilience was practically supernatural. Even the famous patriarch specimen, known as Cro-Magnon 1, lived a life of agonizing chronic pain. His face was completely riddled with destructive bone cysts caused by a rare genetic disease. Yet his skeleton proves he lived to an advanced age. This completely shatters the myth of ruthless, primitive abandonment, revealing a deeply compassionate and supportive tribal structure. This combination of physical durability and social cohesion turned them into the ultimate apex predators. They didn't just hunt for survival. They targeted the largest megafauna available, including bison, massive wild horses, and woolly mammoths. By utilizing complex game-drive tactics, they drove entire herds off cliffs, changing the landscape of animal populations forever. From an analytical perspective, their hunting efficiency was so devastating that it likely contributed to the mass extinction of Ice Age giants. This prehistoric overexploitation mirrors the modern ecological crises we face today, proving that humanity's tendency to alter ecosystems is an ancient trait. But soon, their lethal hunting tools were turned away from animals. When the winter blizzards intensified and vital resources dwindled to nothing, cooperation dissolved into raw, primal desperation. The absolute darkest chapters of our ancestral history are recorded in the marrow of their bones. Prepare yourselves, because the evidence of what happened next inside these frozen caves will challenge everything you think you know about human nature. Violence is not a modern invention. It is deeply woven into our evolutionary history. The skull of a 30,000-year-old male specimen provides undeniable proof of prehistoric murder. He suffered a devastating high-energy impact to the front of his face from a blunt weapon. The traumatic blow caused massive intracranial hemorrhaging, sealing his fate long before the wound could heal. At the famous Sungir site, another hunter was found with a perfectly clean, deep laceration directly through his thoracic vertebra. This was a calculated, lethal strike, delivered from behind, that instantly severed his primary circulation. This wasn't a tragic hunting accident. This was a deliberate assassination, a calculated act of tribal warfare execution. However, the most chilling discovery lies within Gough's Cave in England, dating back 15,000 years. Here, archaeologists uncovered human skullcaps that had been meticulously carved, shaped, and smoothed for a horrifying purpose: to be used as drinking cups and bowls. The surrounding skeletal remains tell a story of absolute, unadulterated nightmare. The bones of multiple individuals, including young children, showed extensive butchery marks. The soft meat tendons and muscle tissue had been systematically stripped away with razor-sharp flint knives. The long bones were systematically cracked open to extract the nutrient-dense bone marrow inside. Human beings had been processed precisely like hunted game animals. Whether this was a dark, sacred spiritual ritual or an act of extreme cannibalism driven by starvation, it exposes the raw desperation of the Ice Age. But their violence wasn't restricted to their own kind. For thousands of years, they shared Europe with the Neanderthals. A 50,000-year-old Neanderthal fossil was recently found with a fatal projectile wound to the ribs. The angle and kinetic energy of the impact point directly to a lightweight ranged dart or spear. Since Neanderthals only used heavy thrusting weapons, the primary suspect in this ancient cold case is a Cro-Magnon hunter. Our ancestors possessed a lethal technological advantage, allowing them to kill from a safe distance, transforming the nature of combat forever. There is even highly controversial evidence suggesting that Neanderthals occasionally ended up on our ancestors' dinner menu, with jawbones bearing identical butchery marks to butchered deer. Was it total warfare? Or is there a more complex truth? The answer lies within their massive brains and the mind-blowing cultural revolution that followed. Do not miss what comes next. In a bizarre twist of evolutionary history, the average brain volume of these early modern humans was an astonishing 1,514 cubic centimeters. That is significantly larger than the modern human average of just 1,350 cubic centimeters. Their skulls accommodated massive frontal and occipital lobes, unlocking unprecedented visual processing, spatial awareness, and strategic planning. This intellectual superiority triggered a massive cultural explosion across Europe. They learned to schedule mass culling events that perfectly aligned with the seasonal migration patterns of megafauna. They understood the complex life cycles of river fish and even domesticated the very first Paleolithic dogs over 36,000 years ago to guard their camps. Their architectural skills were equally brilliant. When caves were unavailable, they engineered sophisticated open-air settlements. They constructed large, sturdy huts using interlocking mammoth skulls and jawbones, weaving animal pelts and thick grasses through the structures to provide flawless thermal insulation against the deadly, screaming Arctic winds. Furthermore, they established highly complex, continent-spanning trade networks extending over 200 kilometers. They exchanged rare flint, high-quality minerals and decorative shells. This level of economic interaction proves they possessed a structured language and sophisticated social contracts, shattering the primitive trope of the isolated, grunting caveman. Their artistic mastery remains unparalleled. The breathtaking animal murals of Chauvet Cave and the intricate, voluptuous Venus figurines demonstrate a profound grasp of symbolic thought and abstract spirituality. They were even humanity's first true musicians, crafting delicate, mathematically precise flutes out of bird bones to fill the dark, glacial nights with haunting melodies. They possessed peak physical strength, massive brains, and a thriving artistic global culture. So how did these magnificent Ice Age giants completely vanish from the face of the Earth? The truth is, they never actually left. Stay tuned for the final revelation, because the legacy of these ancient survivors is much closer to home than you could ever possibly imagine. As the Pleistocene epoch drew to a close, the massive ice sheets retreated, and the great megafauna began to vanish. The world changed, and the hyper-robust biology of the grand hunters was no longer an evolutionary advantage. Over millennia, their soaring fertility rates allowed them to expand exponentially, eventually absorbing the dwindling Neanderthal populations completely. Instead of going extinct, the Cro-Magnons simply adapted. Through thousands of years of interbreeding with subsequent waves of migrating agricultural populations from the east, their extreme physical robusticity gradually softened, slowly morphing into the exact biological structures of modern humanity. Their ancient journey did not end in death. It synthesized into us. The profound lesson these ancient survivors leave behind is one of absolute psychological resilience. Today we live in an era of unprecedented luxury and technological comfort, yet we routinely crumble under the weight of minor daily stresses. Our ancestors conquered a literal ice age with nothing but stone tools, shattered bones, and an unyielding will to live. You carry the unbroken genetic lineage of those very same titans who stared down the woolly mammoth and survived the frozen wrath of a dying planet. When life throws its worst hardships at you, remember the sheer endurance written into your DNA. You are the living dream of prehistoric survivors who refused to let the human story die in the snow. From the flickering firelight of an ancient mammoth bone hut to the glowing screen you are staring at right now, our species has traveled an unimaginable distance across time. But as our lives become softer and our brains physically smaller, are we losing the raw edge that made us great? What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe for more deep dives into our ancient past.